Semi-finals, Ivory Coast pushes past DRC. Nigeria pulls their magic against South Africa. It's becoming very clear who the favorites of this tournament are. I'm talking about in terms of players, and I'm talking about fan base as well. What was your standout moment watching those two games from Cote d'Ivoire? So, welcome once again to another episode of the Africa Football Showdown. My goodness, it was a game. It was a couple of games that we saw in the semifinals of the Africa Cup of Nations. And we're going to get into all of that. My name is Daniel Dadzie. Today, I'm joined by not one, not two, but three amazing journalists on the African continent. We're going to be talking about everything semifinal and try and predict what's going to happen in the final. So let me begin by introducing two friends of mine who are currently in Abidjan. Darren Allan Kyeyune, he's from Uganda. George Addo Jr. is from Ghana, my brother from another mother. I'll tell you all about that a bit later in the show. But he's been doing some commentary as well. And Solace Chukwu is one of the authorities on the African game. He's joining us from Lagos, Nigeria. Guys, how we doing?
I'm all right.
We're all good. Yeah, I'm good.
Solace,
Yeah, good to
Solace,
be
don't
here.
pretend like you don't want to laugh because you won a game last night, bro. Let me start with you, Darren. What was your standout moment watching those two games from Cote d'Ivoire last night?
Standout moment from the two games was just a simple one. I thought both teams just did coast on via fine margins. Both of them did not have to be exceptional to make their way into the final. The teams that lost out, both Democratic Republic of Congo and South Africa, I thought Congo had a really, really solid unit, and their shape was quite difficult to break down, even under the weight of an expectant country. The electric atmosphere, clad in orange, really put a tough environment for Sebastian de Sabre's team, but they still put out quite a solid setup. Unfortunately, Ivory Coast just relied on the fine margin. On any other day, if Lionel passing the Congo goal makes a better decision, Sebastian Haller wouldn't wheel off in celebration. On the flip side, if South Africa had probably been a little more clinical in the closing stages of the encounter against Nigeria, probably the fixture would have been buried home. But that is it. The teams that didn't play exceptionally well are into the final.
Solace, talk to me. Yesterday, how did it go?
I thought both semifinals were engaging in different ways. Obviously Nigeria's eventual win over South Africa was very tense, very hard fought. It was a really even game. South Africa had their moments, especially in the first half, and Darren said, toward the latter part of the second half. But Nigeria weathered that, had some bright spots themselves, and ultimately won on penalty kicks. So um, you have to feel for South Africa because I thought they actually played really well. Actually, they were well set up. They had the right idea in terms of what they needed to do to export Nigeria, but they just couldn't execute. That Nigeria back three, stroke back five has been a rock for them all tournament, and they needed it yesterday to come to the fore, and it did, and it held against a lot of pressure at various points during the game. So you have to say at the end of the day that Nigeria deserved it, even though, like I said, it was a very really tight game. The other semi-final was a little bit less full of incidents. DR Congo started really well with the better side for like the opening 15, 20 minutes, but they really didn't put their boots on Ivorian necks like they could have and should have. And like we know with this Ivorian side, if you don't kill them dead and bury them and salt the earth that you bury them in, they are not going to go away. And somehow they found the way through. I mean, look at the goal Ale scored. It's a really jammy goal. He completely shins it, bounces into the ground over the goalkeeper. It almost seems like everything is going Cote d'Ivoire's way, and here they are in the final of the AFCON.
Hmm. Great thoughts there. And George, your standout moments. I have an idea what it is, but I'll let you go first.
So, well, I agree that South Africa played very well against Nigeria. I think in the first half, South Africa should have probably scored a goal They seem to have had the right shape to play against Nigeria. But what Nigeria have been doing well in this competition is that the players have been very, very committed. They're more or less fighting rather than relying on the tactics per se of what Jose Peseiro has put out. And that's one of the reasons why they're able to go beyond, the game and get the scoreline and get the result. So we saw what Nigeria could do, of course, with that 3-5-2 formation and how quick they can get in with those attackers up front with Simon and Victor Moses. I mean, Victor Simon, and then Ademola Lookman. They did their best. They had a penalty. But for me, one of the key things in that game was how quick and sharp the VAR officials were to ensure that they had seen an incident on the other side, even though Nigeria had scored the second goal, which was huge for me. And once again, underlines the special work that they have done so far in this competition, the VAR officials. But yeah, Nigeria definitely did well and did enough to go through to the next stage of the competition. For the Ivory Coast one, it's interesting because if you watch the Ivory Coast versus Mali and Ivory Coast versus Senegal, they had poor starts in those games. But against DR Congo, they had a much better start. And it just said to me that they are gradually moving away from we are surprising everybody and we are playing as magicians to we think we have the quality to play. So it was good to see them play the way they were. They were on the front foot in the beginning of the game, but it's always going to be very difficult to break down,
Mm.
Sebastian de Sabre's side. So it appeared to be so. And look, they had some opportunities. People don't forget Frank Kessie with that shot that hit the upright and out. Congo also had the opportunities, but over the 90 minutes, I thought um, after Haller's goal, it's going to be very difficult to see Congo coming back and getting the goal. So I think that generally, Ivory Coast did quite well to get it in there, especially when there were a few statistics. Because I was looking at some statistics before the game, and that DR Congo had played 5 semi-finals, and the only two they won was against host nations in Egypt and Ethiopia, and that could perhaps be something to look out for. But they managed to shut that out nicely, and they made it to the final. Now, though, they face another one. All host nations who have been to the final have won it except Nigeria, who lost to Cameroon in 2000. So that's a big one to look out for. How is it going?
I don't know. I don't know. But what do you guys think worked the most? I mean, I think earlier we were having this conversation, Solace and Darren, about if you look at Nigeria and South Africa, it looked like they were both playing their best because Nigeria has not been seeing a lot of the ball this tournament. They just get the results. South Africa has been playing a lot of the ball, but it's been accompanied by goals. What do you guys think really it went wrong for South Africa?
First and foremost, I think Nigeria knew what was at stake primarily, and knowing that South Africa were going to come and knock the ball around. If you notice, towards the closing stages of the first half, the back line of South Africa kept lofting that ball over the midfield park just to try get behind the back line for Nigeria. Unfortunately, at some point while watching the game, I felt Pasitao should have come with some bit of glue to be able to just have that ball grip onto his feet. Otherwise, the result would have been different. And at this stage of the tournament, it's just down to the small margins. We've seen goals being cancelled for offside. We've seen celebrations being halted by VAR just because of very, very minimal margins. And I thought what South Africa did lack was in the final third. If Pasitao had buried one or two chances, or if they had actually tucked away their penalties, probably that would have as well thrown Ronwen Williams into the mix. But Ronwen is surely helpless if you guys are not taking your kicks. If you help them against Cape Verde and save four, and again you turn out and don't take your kicks the right way, then the momentum swings to Stanley Nwabali. But by and large, I felt South Africa just didn't utilize its opportunities. Nigeria, when the moment came from nowhere, they won a penalty. Um, uh, and that gave them a bit of contra until the 90th minute when they conceded another. But um, uh, uh, if you look at it entirely over the game management, I thought Nigeria managed the game better than South Africa. Even if South Africa, within the 120 minutes, they played better.
Just a point on Nigeria, and this is why I've loved the Nigerian team. Though I'm Ghanaian, so somewhere deep inside me, hey, Nigeria, don't go and win the fourth Africa Cup of Nations. But look, I've Yeah, yeah, of course. But I've loved Nigeria for a few things now. Now, the performance at the Africa Cup of Nations is actually opposite to what they were doing in the qualifiers. We always said Nigeria didn't have a balanced team and we were not sure. It looked like a team that had only the attack and everything. But I think that the defense has been so disciplined and they just know when to take you on. I have looked at the way the three boys have played up in front, and look, the likes of Iwobi, Nyeka, uh, Basse, even the wing backs, Aina, they have been really, really sharp. And you have always seen that Victor Osimhen is either making a dick run to make space for Demola to shoot, or Simon gets onto the ball at a very good place and sends it in. And the way they run at you, that's why I was impressed with the way South Africa dealt with. And I agree with him that South Africa needed to score the goals because Nigeria are not lacking in fight and commitment on the pitch, and they have got quality. When you combine these things, it's really, really difficult. Look, I even think that if South Africa scored the goal, Nigeria would have stepped up, and that's what you're seeing
Yeah.
in the games that have gone out. So they're doing very, very well for me. I think that the commitment that they're showing and the way Pasero has gone about it, and more importantly, the way the boys have adapted to what the coach has told them, it's absolutely brilliant to watch.
We were on this show, beginning of the tournament. We actually had Kenneth Omeru on, and he admitted that we don't necessarily have the best of defensive setups in this. Before this, in fact, this was Nwabani's first game starting
Yeah, he made his debut. Yeah.
for Jose Pesero.
Like, I don't really understand how I'm feeling when I look around millions of Nigeria. I only want to make them happy and just make them feel good. To me, I don't even expect this coming. Like, I don't really expect this thing coming my way now. But I give God the glory, and I want to say a very big thank you to everyone, my club, Chippa United family, and my coaches here who always guide me and tell me where to go and how I'm going to go.
Conceding only 2 penalties in the whole shootout. I don't know. Was it Pastor Jimmy Odukoye's prayer? Solid. Or Tinubu says it was the vice president who brought the fire. I don't know what you think.
Oh, brother. Look, I don't discount the place of prayer in all of this stuff, but I think it's important to give Pesero as well as the players the props that they're due. It's one thing to come into a tournament and say, okay, we want to play a new shape that we've never played before. It's another thing for the players to buy into that idea and say, okay, fine, we're going to do this. We've never done it before. This is a major tournament, but we're all going to dial in and make sure that we get the execution right. And I think both of those factors coming together is a credit to the manager himself for getting his ideas across that quickly in such a high pressure situation, and also the players for executing. And we've had situations during this tournament where it almost seems like Nigeria pull something out of the hat. I think what has defined Nigeria's play the most is, like we said, commitments, but not just mental, also physical. These players have run
Yeah,
themselves into the ground,
yeah,
and I think that's actually been a bit of a problem over the last couple of games. We've, especially in the first half against South Africa yesterday, the Nigeria team were tired. These guys were completely wrecked on their feet. But
Hmm.
somehow they found the second win because Seaman, who had been an afterthought in the first half, in the second half, he completely exploded, was everywhere, throwing his limbs about, trying to get on the ball, running at defenders, and he won that penalty. Now, uh, looking at that, you would say, okay, it happened completely out of nowhere, but it's really a function of these players' mindsets. And coming to the tournament, Osimhen said it that he wants to win the AFCON because he knows that if he doesn't, with all that he has achieved on an individual level, questions will be asked. Everyone will say, this is the era of Victor Osimhen. Where is your AFCON trophy? So it's almost like he took it personally in that moment. Like South Africa were the better side in the first half. Nigeria seemed to be sagging under the weight of accumulated fatigue and South Africa's brilliant tactical system. But the players led by Victor Osimhen simply said, no, we cannot let it go this way. We have to take this game by the scruff of the neck, even though we're flagging, even though we're on our last legs. If we perish, we perish.
and when they attack or when they get the ball, they have to counter attack. They all know what they have got to do. And you think it's a joke, but when you watch all the games, you see patterns repeating themselves, and you're like, this is something that they've practiced and they're doing it well. So I listened to Solace just saying that they had to start something new at the tournament, and the players have bought into it. Now, if you see Osimhen, the African Player of the Year, going back to defend, hello, who are you anywhere not to do the same? Look at Trusikon, fantastic competition that he has had. And there are some unsung heroes in that team who are not really talking about. But you have to check Ajayi and Trusikon, the goalkeeper you're talking about. Everybody is putting together that collective effort to try and go. And they really had to go above that mental barrier, because the game against Equatorial Guinea wasn't too good. They had the flag, they had the backlash, they had everything, and then they had to organize themselves. And since then, they've been a very good side. So I only worry again with the last point that Solis made about running out of steam, fatigue, and how they can manage all of
Just
that.
to pick on your point, the last one that you've said to do with the fatigue, one of the biggest advantages that Nigeria has had at this tournament has been the fact that 5 of the 6 games they've played have all been in Abidjan. And several coaches have come
Yeah.
out to state that they've toiled to make it to the latter stages of the tournament. For instance, Pedro Goncalves of Angola, I think they played the group stage action. They played, I think, in Bouake. They had a game in Yamoussoukro, went back, played in Bouake. By the time they arrived in Abidjan, a third different city, for the quarterfinal against Nigeria, they had really burnt out. They were spent force. And that drove me to South Africa. If you notice the lapses of concentration, especially by the time they go to take the penalties, you feel the fatigue was beginning to kick in for the South Africans. First, 4 straight starting 11s after they lost the opening game against Mali. Number two, South Africa is the only team in the tournament that has played in all the 5 cities, that or is going to play in all the 5 cities by the end of the tournament. They played the group stage action in Korhogo. They played the last 16 in San Pedro. They played the quarterfinal in Yamoussoukro and eliminated Cape Verde. They played the semi-final in Bouake, and they wrap up with the third place playoff in Abidjan. So they're the only team to play all in all the 5 cities for the tournament, and that is really, really, really key. Um, and perhaps you could find Democratic Republic of Congo could be getting the edge. You just need to watch for those last 30 minutes of the game when they take on Congo. That could come to play a factor.
So, guys, another thing that we have to talk about is how Nigeria has been celebrating that win on Twitter. Honestly, Solis, what I know about be how Ghana they always catch stray bullets. It's like we are sitting at somewhere, we haven't done anything, and then all of a sudden, it's like you can't celebrate on your own. You have to add black stars. Solis.
Well, let's not look at it that way. Ghana is not innocent in this. Let's be honest here. Ghana has consistently been rooting for the opponent whenever Nigeria plays. That's just the truth. So I mean, you shouldn't be surprised. These two teams, we love each other, right? Where there's the whole sibling rivalry thing going on. So it's really just our own way of spicing things up for ourselves. Unfortunately, if Ghana was here, maybe it's possible we could be playing Ghana, and then that would be even more heated. But in the absence of Ghana, we need somebody to, let out our excitement. We need an outlet. And unfortunately for Ghana, the Black Stars provide that outlet. Yeah, things aren't really great on the ground, from a Nigerian perspective. So, football is our release. And if we can enjoy that football at the expense of Ghana, all the better, to be honest.
I don't know, Daniel, but I think the Ghanaians are, trying to protect winning the Africa Cup of Nations 4 times. But in truth, if you think about it, Nigeria deserved to be the third best country when it comes to the history of the Africa Cup of Nations and the number of titles won. Now, that's where the Nigerians feel like they're putting a lot of work, but they don't have a lot to show for it. And Ghana is sitting third at the moment because Egypt has 7 titles, Cameroon have 5 titles, and Ghana has the 4 titles, and Nigeria has the 3 titles. But do you know what? Nigeria have made this is their seventh final they are making. Now they've won it 3 times, but they lost 3 times in the final, and that was to Cameroon straight up. So and they've been to the semi-final 16 times. So there's a feeling like We are better than Ghana, but we can show it. So Nigerians are looking for the opportunity to head up into 4 and then go up to 5. We have been stuck there since 1982, and our prayer is Nigeria, don't get to 4. We have to bless you before you get to 4. It's not now, maybe 2028. So it's feisty, man.
But this don't win the thing. Me, I've already called it for Nigeria. I'm not saying they will throw me.
Oh,
But
Ghanaians are supporting Ivory Coast now because Ivory Coast is closer. We know Ivory Coast is closer. We
No,
eat the
no,
same
no,
food.
so that is not the reason. We know that is not the. Let's be
We have a lot of. They say
that's not
Akwaba,
the.
we say
okay,
Akwaba. They are eating Acheke, we
okay,
are eating Acheke. So we are close. So we feel they are part of us now. That's the only issue. So we are supporting Ivory Coast. That's
okay,
the
Right,
issue
boys,
now.
boys,
right.
boys, boys, boys. Let me bring in the neutral here, Darren. Really, do you think it is fair? I mean, if you forget Ghana, what they've done to South Africa on Twitter since yesterday.
I
Oh,
saw the
Charlie.
Eagles stepping on the whole South
Oh,
African country.
Charlie.
Ish.
A whole Amapiano genre has been co-opted. It's like, nah,
I'm
right now
telling
it's
you.
for. Hey.
And eventually the Nigerians owned it, interestingly,
Uh,
before the game. But of course, what spiced the banter um, was the fact that Tyler, the 22-year-old from South
yeah.
Africa, went on to beat 4 established Nigerians with their Afrobeats in the music industry to that Grammy Award. And, that sent a chin down the spines of the Nigerians for quite a bit. And I don't think they've recovered from it, even if they got the result on the field of play. But feel what has been going on, for instance, um, after Nigeria beat Cameroon, one of the things that I saw were the Eagles, the claws of the Eagles scratching the backs of the Lions, and then somehow Angola was buried dead after the quarterfinal on social media, perhaps because of the numbers. They don't have quite many accounts to, but that against the South Africans, I think. It will still go on and on. We are still in for it, and we love it. And perhaps a bit of fresh air, considering I've eaten both kinds of jollof, both from Nigeria and Ghana.
Okay, so you tell me which one is better. We for win the Jollof one if we can't win the if we can
I
win the
don't want
AFCON.
to mince my words. Ghanaian jollof is better.
All
Yeah.
day, every
So,
day. All day, every day. So let's are you
no, yeah,
listening?
but it's a Nigeria is playing.
Darren, we can talk about this when this call is ended. I know I'm outnumbered here, so we can talk about this with more clarity and honesty after this call. Don't worry about it.
I'm gonna play my favorite clip from Twitter on this trolling. Guys, thank you so much. First of all, thanks to Darren Allan Kyeyune for joining us earlier. Kyeyune, I should say, for joining us earlier. He's from Uganda. He is currently in Cote d'Ivoire. So is George Addo Jr., my brother from another mother, and Solace Chukwu. Pleasure meeting you today, man. It's been absolutely subliminal doing this with you. Thanks for joining us on the Africa Football Showdown. This is one of our final episodes for this season, for the AFCON season. Watch this for more. Thank you very much. If you are listening to us on any of our partner stations in Nigeria and Liberia, in Zambia, Malawi, in Ghana, thank you so much for doing the listening. Remember, you can also catch us on YouTube, or you can listen to us on any podcast hosting platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere at all that you get your podcasts. My name is Daniel Dadzie. Boyantum shout outs to Mimi Fawaz and Peter Okoche. The gang will be back after the final. I don't know how we're going to do it. But before we go, watch George go crazy. Just watch this.